So I saw a really interesting video on YouTube from someone I'm subscribed to and stuff. And they came up with this super clutch idea where they put springs and all that and the shaft directly to it and stuff. And that's cool, except when you put the nut on the bottom, it can't press down enough onto the clutch pads. And I think I got a way around that. We're going to use this 3/16 piece of steel here. Alright, so I really liked this idea. I thought it was funny. I could have just made a super clutch at this point. I could have just cut a big circle and literally made one. But we're not going to do that. I liked this idea. I thought it was cool. I said, well, I was going to make a big pleat because I want the springs to actually push on this pleat instead of on this. And what I'm going to do is these two holes, I'm going to actually just put bolts straight through little ones just to make them all one unit so they pull up and down, because the pins actually are what take all the force anyways. So anyways, with all that aside, so I got a little indent here that fits in that perfectly. So when these are all aligned, poof, of course not even turned right, but you get what I'm saying. So this will just kind of free float on the two little nuts, but these are actually how, you know, it holds itself to the shaft. So not worried about it. If you could see, it's threaded. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, in the middle there. So, yeah, I didn't finish this or anything yet. I just kind of did it really quick. So, we're going to, make this all look pretty at some point. But, anyways, that was the idea. I really like this idea. So one of the main issues with these is this bucking bar. The ones they even sell and stuff, they cut a slot, they lather it up in Loctite, screw it in, and put it to the point they need it for length to make sure it works with their kit. Now they give you an extended bucking bar, and either you could screw this all the way in and grind that thing perfect until it wears out, and then it's no longer perfect and screws up anyways. Or you could take the bucking bar, screw it into something, and what I did is I used a locking nut on the other side to lock it to this plate. So mine, I unscrewed it ever so slightly, if you can see. It's not exactly all the way up, and that's how I adjusted the length to get this to move in and out perfectly. So I'm using this as a length adjuster, basically, for when it does its movement. If I screwed it in more, it would get closer and not lift as much. If I screw it out, it'll hold it further away from the pad. So that is how I'm getting around that issue. Alright. Alright, so what I did is I put one of these in a drill, basically. Ground the head down so it was flat with the rest of it. Then tapped it with threads down there. I'm putting red Loctite on them. And they're going in one by one. Alright, I want to show you something you got to keep in mind when you're doing one of these. The outside ring gear on the basket always has play in it to some extent on that bearing. And what happens is as this is spinning and it grabs this, it aligns itself with the teeth. So as these teeth bind with each other, it aligns. Now this disc has a little bit of play. I used 8mm drill bit for the 7mm posts so that it slides freely. It has a little bit of play. So what happens is when this drops and this is aligning, the lead edges of these pins will grab the holes, center itself as this gear aligns itself. So you gotta have a little bit of play in this. It's a common misconception about these in general for clutches. So keep that in mind when you're doing this. You always need about 1mm of play. And that way this gear can align itself with the other one. That's how it works. It's by design. Alright, so here's how I did my cover. So I'll show you how I cut this. Alright, so I took a caliper and I held it here, right against the edge, and I found the center. All three of these are identical in length to center. So I took it, put it here, went like that, went like that, and went like that on my cover. And then what I did is I just drilled a hole through the center and then ran a hole saw through it. But that's how you get it so that it's like perfectly dead center. Alright. Well, like everything disappointing with Amazon lately, my freaking springs didn't come today on Saturday. So now I gotta wait till Monday. I've been aligning some stuff and getting it all set up for them. Here's a break, and see it lifts up and down perfectly. So at least I know I'm all set and ready to go, and just gotta get the springs so we can finally see how this thing locks down. Alright, so I think there's a myth about these to some extent, and I just want to explain something. People say when you pull in a disc on something on a clutch, it grips less than when you push against it. I mean, force is force applied. You put 30 pounds of force on something, it's going to put 30 pounds of force regardless of which direction you're pulling it from. So, I don't know, maybe there's some race thing or something. Who knows? I don't know. But what I did is I used 3 sockets and 3 nuts on the posts and just tightened them down. And I only did it 5 foot-pounds. And this grips like a beast compared to even the stock spring that pulls in. And I think the misconception is that when you pull it in, even though it's so much, it slips. Well, it's because the plate doesn't sit perfectly flat when you pull it from the dead center on all these pads and stuff. And now you have 3 points where it's distributing the force more evenly across the whole plate, pushing it down. And I believe that's why it locks up so much better like this. So, anyways, I just wanted to point that out. Alright, so these little buggers came today. So, this is where we ended up at. This grips like a mofo. It's turning that over. So, anyways, I have a brake handle here set up. And you pull it in and spins great. So right there's 200, 200, 200. So we're looking at 600 pounds of force on this, evenly spaced. So seems to be pretty good. We'll find out when we test it. I am planning on getting different length springs and stuff, so I'm going to leave these a little long. If I didn't mention before, the posts, if you want to use a 20 millimeter spring, will be 45 millimeter. They get threaded 8 at the bottom, whatever, and then whatever is already threaded on the bolt. So these 20 millimeter springs here compress down about 5 millimeters. So, but this thing is locked. This is awesome. And it's really not that bad pulling it in and out either. I thought it would be a lot worse. Alright, we'll see how it goes when it gets on the bike at some point here in the near future. And I get that going too shortly.